All right, guys, the moment that we've all been waiting for. Greg, just look at this, the Tesla Model X. Pete, are you excited?
Oh, I'm very excited, and I can see we've opened up our wings ready for takeoff.
It just blows my mind. Everything just blows my mind.
Well, instead of it blowing your mind, let's actually go for a test drive in the vehicle and experience it.
Would you mind taking us?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, guys, so now we are finally in the car. This is a moment I think we've all been looking forward to. So I think maybe first impressions of the drive. Fani, what have you got to say?
Every time we get into an electric vehicle, just pulling away and not hearing anything is the weirdest thing ever, and I don't think I'm ever going to get used to that. But Pete, when this door closed, it was the coolest thing ever. Can you remember the show called Beyond 2000?
Yes, I do.
When we were,
I was a little boy.
When I was a little boy and you were in my 30s. Yeah, in your 30s. That show, I feel like we're driving in it now.
Exactly.
Hey?
Actually, that's a great point, isn't it? I mean, the
we've
technology,
arrived.
just look at the screen, for example, over here. So, Greg, you were telling us that this is actually a fully fledged computer in here. I mean, what new generation, or how did you describe it?
Yeah, it is a new generation PC with quite a lot of computing power behind it, because as I mentioned previously, the car's got full driving capabilities, self-driving capabilities, and you need proper computing power for that. So you can see by the arcade games, which we'll go through later, there's a lot of that sort of tech behind that screen.
Listen, but Greg, usually the autonomous drivers and stuff have that massive camera on the top that rotates and that. Does it do it with its onboard cameras?
Correct. So the vehicle has 6 cameras, numerous other sensors plus LiDAR. So with all of those capabilities, it has full self-driving.
But not in South Africa?
Not in South Africa at this stage because of the legislation around that.
Because we don't have road signs and road markings.
Yeah.
So just on the arcade games, by the way, I did read an article that they were saying that this is one of the most powerful gaming computers.
Really?
Yeah. So fully fledged arcade game ability with a very, very, very powerful computer.
Okay, so talk to me about your first impression in the front. Have you ever seen a windscreen this big in your life? This goes all the way above your head.
Funny.
Well, there's just so many things to look at. So, I mean, first of all,
you looked at the display.
I'm
yeah.
looking at the cluster, and it's
Check it
obviously picking up the vehicles that are in front of us
Yeah.
live and showing them interactively in terms of exactly where they are and how fast they're moving.
Including the traffic lights.
That is insane.
Oh, there we go, yeah. So
looks
you
like
can
a
see
computer
all the...
Yeah.
It is quite extraordinary, really.
So the camera system can also pick up road signs. It reads road signs. It reads the traffic lights as well.
But just getting back to what you were saying, Fani, this windscreen, sort of a quasi windscreen panoramic roof all in one.
Yeah.
Quite incredible.
Insane. And check at the people next to us.
Yeah.
Everybody is just checking out the car.
And you know what's funny? We are inside it.
Yes. Greg, how's it been driving this car for the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, I mean, wherever you go, it attracts a crowd. But I think from a driving experience, I just don't want to go back to my old car. I mean, when I say old car, it's not an old car.
Yes.
It's an Audi Q5.
Yep.
The new TDI, but it's you can't compare the electric vehicle to a house. It just doesn't.
And one of the things that actually stands out for me, and we've done a review on an electric vehicle before,
Yeah.
but certainly our experience with it is that when you stop at a robot, especially the first few times, you suddenly realize just how archaic an ICE is.
Yeah.
Because you can hear the clattering, knocking sound of the engine at idle, whereas the electric car is absolutely silent.
Yeah.
I think Greg should find a place where the speed limit's not 60.
Yeah, that's true. And
So
that's-
0 to 100 in this is, by the way, 2.5 seconds. I mean, come on, the Lamborghinis in the world are going to be blushing.
So, I mean, so we get to 100. 100 and which we're from there.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That is just insane performance. Just listen to everybody be quiet. we can't believe it.
It's a sense of shock.
Yeah.
This big SUV and the performance out of it is sports
And Greg,
car.
I must ask you, this is in like a normal mode, correct? This is not in what's it called?
Ludicrous Plus.
Ludicrous mode.
So this is Ludicrous, but there's Ludicrous Plus, which is one level above,
Oh my soul.
which I'll show you. and
Okay.
we can test it out.
I'm sorry, but only Elon Musk would have a function on his car called Ludicrous. Oh, man.
Funny thing is, I was under the impression this is a bit of a name game, just the Tesla, and from photos, some of the pictures look ugly. But again, like with previous vehicles, I'm just blown away. This is fancy, and this is a car, Pete. There's nothing that I'm missing here. It's not that you sacrifice anything because this is now an electric vehicle or
And
something.
that's a great point, isn't it, Fritz? That there is no sacrifice. In fact, there's just gain. If you
Correct.
think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
the performance, the computer system, the
I can't believe that.
the acceleration. I mean, it's phenomenal. Oh,
Greg, I can only imagine you just having fun
All the
with
time.
smiling all the time. That is actually mind-blowing. Talk us
Yeah.
through what you're doing there.
So these are the settings, the numerous settings in the vehicle.
All right.
And you can set the driving mode as you prefer. Often I just leave it in Ludicrous, in Sport, and Standard, but there are various options that you can set it to. So Ludicrous Plus,
so just let's go back. There's chill,
yeah.
then there's sport, Ludicrous, and Ludicrous Plus.
And check
Yeah.
what comes up when you press Ludicrous Plus.
Are
No,
you sure?
I want my mommy. Yes, bring it on.
Okay, so we'll put it in that mode, and let's say yes. Okay, now it's in Ludicrous Plus. But the acceleration is a marked difference.
Because I'm going to line my back up so that I can get it sorted, so that I don't have to go visit a chiropractor afterwards.
What we do, it's just to experience the acceleration.
Sure.
So we don't want to break speed limits or anything. It's just to feel what that power
Sure.
Yes.
launch feels like.
So Greg, it looks very simple. How's your experience of the whole, how can I say, the software and the layout? Is it you need a course in engineering or something?
No, so I think it's very intuitive. I think as far as the software is concerned, it does take a bit of time to understand the controls over here. But as from a driving experience, it's very, very straightforward. It's like driving a top of the range golf cart. That's the easiest way to explain.
I think it's fair to say that if you got a brand new cell phone, it would take you time to get used to the software in any case. But
Correct.
once you've learnt it, then it's kind of becomes second nature.
Especially at your age.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a few days of playing around with the controls, going through everything in detail to understand what it does. But as far as the driving is concerned, it's up and down with one stalk and park, up, down. So it's forward, reverse, and park. There's no other controls required. It's just really that. So yeah. So let's just wait for that car to pull away.
I can't wait.
Okay, here we go.
What the hell, bro? I'm seriously just like a little boy. It's insane.
Sure.
Okay, yes, it is Ludicrous Plus. That is insane. And another question that I wanted to raise, and this is for you, Peter, with regards to this has got air suspension, am I correct in saying that?
Correct.
Okay, but it is quite a stiff ride, Pete. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I think
Very sporty?
I think that's maybe the function of being ludicrous.
Yes.
So if we had to, so there we go. So Greg can stick it into comfort, for example.
Oh, so you can go comfort, auto,
Yeah.
sport, advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very interesting.
And there's your ride height as well. So I think if you had a very high ride height and comfort, it would soften things up
Yeah.
beautifully. Because that's the beauty of an air spring, is that it's got a variable spring rate.
Correct.
Whereas a spring, a steel spring is a consistent spring rate, except if you add weight to it, obviously.
I've got another question. So Greg, this is battery power, battery consumption, regenerative braking, all of that. So
Yes.
what's in your mind all the time? Are you thinking save battery? Are you not in that mode? Or how do you manage that?
Okay, so what's interesting with this vehicle compared to an ICE is really the regen braking. So it's a bit of a mind reset, frame reset, because it does exactly opposite what an ICE vehicle would do. So if you take your foot off the accelerator, the car goes into a brake mode or regen brake mode, and you get used to that feel. Whereas in an ICE vehicle, you take your foot off the accelerator, it typically coasts.
Yes.
So you start to gauge at what distance the vehicle will stop. In many instances, and 90% of the time, you don't touch the brakes. It's only really for emergency use, or if you're riding at a high speed and you need to stop quickly, you would actually use the brakes. But regen braking in town is the only thing you would use.
So there's just two things I want to showcase here. First of all, there's obviously little either accelerometers or physical sensors that's measuring the articulation of the suspension. So you can actually see these lines over here
Yes.
create almost a ribbon effect
Yes.
with the motion of the vehicle. So that's quite cool. But the second thing is that with that regeneration on the brakes, there is obviously a setting where you can make it that it's quite aggressive or not as aggressive.
So at the moment, it's in auto. So it will automatically adjust for your driving style. So for instance, at the moment we are in Ludicrous Plus. So what they call the cheetah stance, the vehicle would dip its nose slightly for aerodynamics. And you will notice the difference once you stop, because the front end of the vehicle will lift up slightly with the suspension. Or if you park the vehicle, it shifts back up to its right up. If you go into the freeway, it obviously would then adjust to its lowest height, right up.
For aerodynamics.
Etc. But the underside of the vehicle is also very interesting. If you have to take a look there, it's completely flat.
It's flat, eh?
It's flat, and it's got like an aerofoil, not an aerofoil, but thin
diffuser
underneath.
So it's got a proper diffuser at the back.
Yeah.
So what's interesting with that, by the way, is that because you've got all these different, I want to say, attitudes of the vehicle in terms of the nose and also the ride heights, that makes a crash test quite complex.
Sure.
Because I remember initially when they first introduced forward-facing collision avoidance systems, a lot of the vehicles were failing. And the reason for that is that the vehicle was under autonomous braking and the nose was pitching down, and so it was impacting at the wrong angle. So they actually had to adjust the crash tests to accommodate
That is
that
insane.
particular feature. So I'd imagine it's going to be very similar here.
Greg, just with regards to charging, are you charging this at night at home, or how did you guys set up your system here?
So we've got a Tesla charger here, which is mounted on the pole in the parking bay,
Okay.
and we charge there. And typically takes like 2 hours to charge, because I ran it down to maybe 50%, and then I'll just recharge again.
So one thing that's interesting, Barney, is that the first 50% of the battery's charging is quicker than the second 50%. And in fact, as the battery gets close to being full, the charging time actually takes longer and longer.
Okay.
So the way that the charging stations are actually being designed is you don't necessarily need a 250 kilowatt station. You could have a 150 kilowatt station, but you charge to 50%.
Yes.
And then you drive to the next station, you charge to 50%, which will be quicker than charging at one station to 100%.
I hear you.
Okay, Greg, now that we are safe and sound from Ludicrous mode and we parked, maybe you can take us through some of the features and some of the highlights for you in terms of the touchscreen menus and...
Sure. So I mean, it's a 17-inch high-resolution screen with a lot of the settings and functionality. But I think just to run through some of the highlights, this sub-menu has a toy box, which I think everybody enjoys. The emissions mode is quite cool.
You see,
So this is a great feature, especially when you break the ice and you've got somebody in the vehicle and you want to get something, get a talking piece, etc.
so literally it says here fart on demand.
Yeah, so
Or fart on turn signal.
So these are great features if you want to set up and you're getting passengers in the back of the vehicle and you want to surprise them with something different.
That's cool.
You can set these features, so you can activate via the button while
Okay.
you're driving, or via turn signal, or just randomly as we have it here on the screen, and then various fart functions. So we're in Falcon Heavy at the moment, but Ludicrous is quite a big one. And then it's got random, I'm so random, so it will just, boring fart.
That sounded like Fritz.
Yeah, that's a Fritz fart.
Ludicrous is my favorite. So that's one of the fun features. I think the kids enjoy this the most. I would say some of the adults as
I'm
well.
gonna say I'm gonna out of all the features that we've gone through on this car, this is my favorite.
Yeah, and so tracks mode is just you can mix your own tracks, music tracks, etc. Romance is quite cool because if you're on a date, you can activate this.
Just listen to the sound.
So that's no way. So that's an actual fireplace.
And the fireplace to bring out the wine, beautiful view of the sea, have a romantic date. You don't actually need to go to the movies. You've got your fireplace going. That's pretty cool. Sketchpad is for the kids, just to sketch around. Then you've got Mars mode, which takes your map and transposes your vehicle onto Mars. It's just a fun feature. When you're in autopilot mode, your road becomes a rainbow. And then submarine, which is your James Bond submarine mode, which is pretty cool. So these are just some of the toys, but there's still entertainment. You've got a lot of games that you can play. And typically, if you're waiting for a charge at a charging station, you've got all these options on games. As I said, the processor behind this screen is quite powerful, so to run these games. And what happens is your car becomes your games console. So your steering wheel becomes your games console within the, for instance, this game. So you can steer action, your brakes become brakes of the vehicle.
Yeah,
So
that is sensation.
It's fully immersive and interactive, which is great. And if you want to watch a movie and then have a fireplace moment with your date, you can watch Netflix or YouTube, or you watch some tutorials, whatever you desire. So as far as the toys and you got your normal web browser.
Sure, yeah.
This is quite interesting. So charging, you can set the charge of the vehicle.
And the reason why you'd want to do that is obviously that it makes it quicker. Because as we said earlier, as the battery starts to get to full charge, the actual time it takes to charge slows down. But also to protect the battery, because the charging introduces heat into the battery, and heat is the bad thing for a lithium-ion battery.
Correct. And in general, the charging capacity is set to 90%. But to calibrate the batteries every 4 weeks, what I do is I set it to 100% to trip destination charging, and the vehicle will charge up to 500 kilometers or 100% charge, and that really calibrates the battery so to extend the life of the battery longer term.
Okay.
So that's important for battery management. And let's just see.
And I think this just, if we can absorb that, a 500 kilometer range.
Yeah. So again, a bit of a mind bend, because your range in town is more than what you would have on the open road.
Sure.
Because typically you're driving the car harder on the open road versus in town. So if you look at this, this is quite interesting. So energy. So depending on how you drive, it's calculated at watt hours per kilometer. So if you're driving roughly 250 watt hours per kilometer, that's sort of the optimal range. Anything higher than that, you tend to lose range. So if you gauge at 400 or 500 kilometers, you might get, say, 450, for instance, driving at higher speeds. But this function is available on my dash. You can set these sort of widgets up in your front dash, so you can monitor your power usage. Yeah, so going through some more of the features, as we showed you the energy usage, we've got the camera system, calendar, calls, but within the driving of the vehicle, so these are the standard controls. You've got the quick controls, which are your open doors, set the brightness of the screen. Suspension is quite cool. I tend to leave everything on auto because it just gives you the best of everything, really. Interior lighting, exterior lighting, driving as it's set up. What you can do is once you set all these settings up, you can create a profile for yourself or other drivers. So if I press my name, all of those parameters are set up. The driving style is set up for me. Autopilot, this is quite cool. So they do push through beta testing software to the vehicle every now and again, and we are then allowed to test these functions. But as I say, not legal in South Africa at this stage. Okay, the Falcon door, it's quite interesting. So there are various sensors around the vehicle. So as you open doors, those sensors will detect if there's any obstacles, and they'll open to a limited degree. But everything again is set to auto.
So you might have a garage that's got a particularly low wall on one side, for example, that you wouldn't want the door to open up against. So that's where that comes in.
Yeah, and it would avoid all of those sort of issues. But typically, if you're parking a vehicle like this, it's a fairly large vehicle, and if the parking space is tight, the most common question with the Falcon doors is, will the doors open? And they will. So they'll open up slightly and then lift vertically and then open up, so you can get out of the vehicle. In fact, the actual mechanism is actually better than a normal door. Easier to get out of. There's typical navigation settings, trips, etc. So as far as the software is concerned, it gives you the latest information on the software. You can either choose between standard or advanced to receive sort of beta versions of software. Yeah, I mean, it's all intuitive. It takes a bit of time to just go through. Sure. The screen is really where everything happens. And you've got seat heating, steering wheel heating, your air conditioning system. So you've got a lot of functionality within the software, and as I say, very, very intuitive.
What does the key look like?
The key is fantastic.
That's the key.
And there's, you said 5 buttons on that.
Yeah, so 5 buttons. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and different. So double press will unlock, single press will lock. So if we open the Falcon doors on the sides, double press and they'll open. Single press on the top will close and lock the vehicle. And it's also the vehicle will sense the fob. So if you can set it up in your software, so as you walk close to the vehicle, the door will actually open for you.
Insane.
So these are all customizable features that, you know, some people like, some people don't like, because it can become a nuisance if you just want to pick up something in your garage and the door opens.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you can set it to only open once you've double clicked, etc., etc. Or if you've opened another door, and then it will automatically open the driver's door as well.
Amazing.
One last question. What's the one thing that you miss on this?
The ability to go into space. I think it's about the only thing that's
why I
missing from
didn't
that.
ask you, Pete. Is there one thing missing here? Is there one thing that you, compared to your Audi, that you think, if only, maybe the sound, maybe the grunt, or functionality? Is there anything?
No. So in all honesty, it fulfills everything that I would want within a vehicle and more. There's just nothing that I can complain about, to be honest.
And after our driving experience, I tend to want to complain less about the price of the vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's the most contentious thing, I think. You know, I think it's one of the hurdles. And again, it's one of the reasons why we bought the vehicle in is to lobby government to bring down the tariff structures around EVs, because this is the future, and the OEMs are getting more and more involved with EVs. So it makes sense for them to start lowering those hurdles and stimulate the industry and just get it going.
I'd go as far as to say is, never mind lower the hurdles from a tax point of view, but in fact they should take the CO2 taxes that are being charged on all RCE vehicles, most of them, and actually apply rebates to these cars to really bring them into realistic alignment from a price relativity point of view.
I mean, ideally, might be a pipe dream, but we would like to see zero duties on these vehicles. for the first 5 years at least, just to stimulate that industry growth. And also ad valorem tax being done away with, because I think that's quite a big inhibitor. So if you add ad valorem tax, which is the luxury tax, with the import duties, you're sitting at 55% alone on those two taxes, and then you still add VAT. So once you've added all these compound taxes, you sit at 90% of the value of the cars in tax.
Yeah, and it's going to be a real challenge, I think, for the industry to convince government, because not only would you be removing taxes and opportunity for revenue for the government from the actual vehicle itself, but of course there's no more fuel taxes that they'll be earning. And we know that 65% of the fuel price per litre is made up in taxes. So it is going to be a challenge, but I think a challenge that's worth fighting, because at the end of the day, you know, I mean, with what we've experienced here, gentlemen, I've got to tell you that
Absolutely
I've been converted completely.
Greg, you're welcome to go to work, but I'm going to spend some time in a 3 million rand driving simulator now for the rest of the day.
Yeah, but I think there is definitely an equilibrium that will come through as we move ahead with EVs. There will be a transition period between ICE and EV. I think it's address the problem up front and see what solutions there are, and then from there assess, you know, how do we structure taxes, because obviously the government needs to make revenue in some other way, so but address the problem and come up with solutions, as opposed to putting your head in the sand and saying, well, let's hope it goes away, because it's not going away. This is the next technology wave, and if we're not ready, we're going to get bowled over.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Greg.
Cool.
Appreciate
My pleasure.
it. Yes, Peter. How's about the performance on that car, Brie?
Well, I've got to tell you something funny. I think that my future test drives of any other vehicle has...
We've actually just made our lives very difficult.
Because this is really the ultimate vehicle that we've ever experienced. So,
Agreed.
Greg, I can't thank you enough, honestly.
My pleasure.
For you guys in Rubicon for hosting us today and really putting us through an incredibly pleasurable exercise. But I got one more request for you. And that is, I believe that this car can do the Tesla dance.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's have a look.